Hey, welcome back to another video with me, Connor Khan, the language czar. And yes, you did read the title correctly. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons never to date a Ukrainian girl. And for those of you who are regular viewers of my channel, that title is probably going to come as a surprise because in my videos, you know, I love Ukraine, I love traveling to countries in Eastern Europe, and I have had relationships with girls from the region, of course. Maybe in the videos, I give the impression that everything is great, everything is perfect, and I just want to make this video to explain the downsides of dating Ukrainian girls, or just girls in the former Soviet Union in general, for a lot of these tips that I'm going to give you, so that you don't fall under the false illusion that all that glitters is gold, as the old adage goes. So the genesis for this video was I had some conversations with some friends from the UK, from Germany, from Italy, about their experiences with girls in Ukraine. And these are guys who have come usually for maybe a week, a few days, and they've come to experience the nightlife of Ukraine. And of course, they were super excited to come to the country and to experience it. But actually, overall, they were a little bit negative about their experience with girls in Ukraine in particular. So I was a bit surprised by that. And then I thought back to my first trips to Ukraine when I didn't speak Russian, I didn't understand the culture, and I thought, yeah, that's actually true. I did have a lot of difficulties in the beginning when I first started traveling in Eastern Europe. So that's what prompted me to make this video, to help you guys who are maybe starting to travel in Eastern Europe, have maybe even moved to Eastern Europe, or are just interested in going there at some stage, that you understand also the downsides and some of the difficulties that you may have to overcome if you try to date girls in this region. So with that said, let's get into today's video. I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. I've also decided to make a short little video series as a gift to you guys about how you can have your first successful date with a Ukrainian girl. I'm gonna make that video series, so if you're interested, I'm gonna plop a link down in the description below this video. Go sign up there by email. You'll get an email from me to confirm that your address is real. Click that and then you're on the mailing list and you will get that free gift. So with that said, let's get into today's video, 5 reasons never to date a Ukrainian girl. So in preparation for this video, I actually polled a lot of my foreign friends who've either come to Ukraine on a holiday or actually live here, and see what their reactions and what they think are the downsides to dating Ukrainian women, because obviously the main upside is quite famous around the world, which is the amazing beauty of Ukrainian women. So today I'm going to be going into the 5 reasons that most of my friends outlined, and what I also think about the downsides, the 5 biggest downsides to dating Ukrainian girls. So that right behind me is a bank and an ATM, and that's the first analogy you're going to make, because one of the biggest problems with Ukrainian women is the fact that they use men as mobile ATMs. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly traditional society for maybe North Americans and Western Europeans to adapt to, and the role of the man in a relationship is still seen as that of provider. So you've got to be the guy making it rain in the club. You got to prove yourself in terms of financial clout and protect financially the woman and support her. So that's something that really grates a lot of Western men when they come here, because of course in Western Europe and North America, society is a lot more, we would say, emancipated for women, and they don't necessarily see men as the main breadwinner anymore. I think that's a intergenerational difference, say, between my generation and maybe my father's generation. So that's the first thing, is that women use men, foreigners and Ukrainians, as mobile ATMs. The city is actually known really in the former Soviet Union, the Russian-speaking world, as being a city that's full of people who are very witty, has its own style of speech and its own particular type of humor, a детский humor. So that brings me to my next point, which is that Ukrainian girls do not have a sense of humor. It's actually one that a lot of my English-speaking friends said, and I think that's just because the humor is quite different. And humor is not just about cracking the same universally appreciated jokes or comments on different things that happen in our lives. It's actually really tied up in with the linguistics of the language, also with the culture of the country. I noticed a big division between my friends who actually spoke Russian and those who did not. You know, I've learned Russian, and in the beginning, did I find Ukrainian girls funny? Well, I never really found them unfunny, to be honest, but definitely now that I speak the language, I appreciate the humor, especially here in Odessa, a lot more. I really get it. So you've really got to learn the local language. Here it happens to be Russian for the South Ukraine, or Ukrainian if you're in Lviv in the west, or even in Kiev, the capital. You've really got to go and make that effort. Otherwise you will not get the humor. It's not them, it's you. So that's my small defense of Ukrainian girls' sense of humor. So you came to Lviv and you don't speak any Russian or any Ukrainian. How was your experience? Have you found it difficult or easy to communicate with people?
Şimdi kafelerde, klaplarda falan herhangi bir sıkıntı olmuyor. Çünkü elbet personel arasında illaki bir İngilizce çıkan, bilen birileri çıkıyor. Ama mesela konu kız konularına geldiği zaman, şimdi kızla konuşma sırasında sürekli Ukraynaca, Rusça bilmedikleri için Google Translate kullanıyoruz. O şekilde geçiyor.
Very funny. So how did that work out with Google Translate? Were you able to have enough contact with girls, or was it too tricky to build a relationship?
Çok fazla yardımcı olmuyor aslında. Biraz daha çok mimikler, jestlerle, Google Translate'in yardımıyla yani idare ediliyor ama çok da altyapı sağlam oturmuyor, öyle diyebilirim. Tam anlaşamıyoruz.
So that behind me, right there, is a sign for a marriage agency. I guess we would call them by default, but kind of a dating agency, dating advice agent. That is a huge business here in Ukraine, in the former Soviet, and in particular the city of Odessa. And that's another reason not to date a Ukrainian girl, especially if you in general find them on one of these kind of services or use an app. And that's the other thing that I'm going to get into right now. Just to be clear, I know nothing about this particular dating agency. Actually, they could be completely honest, they could be dishonest, no idea. It's not a judgment call on them, but it's definitely a topic that a lot of my British friends have complained about. So you just caught me playing on Tinder. It's a great app, of course, to meet people, as you're probably aware of. But if you're traveling in Ukraine, you should be aware that sometimes Tinder should come with maybe a health warning for your pocket. There are a lot of unscrupulous girls who use Tinder in order to meet guys, not for a romantic experience, but just to use them for a free meal, or just to be wined and dined basically. And a lot of my friends complain about this, that the girls they met in Ukraine on Tinder in fact were not interested in really meeting them. They just seem to want to go to nice places. I'm sure if you're a pretty girl, you could actually go out 3 times a day and have all your meals paid for in the best places in the city without too much problem. That's because most guys are going to invest in at least one date, if not multiple dates, in order to know if anything's going to happen with a particular girl. So you should definitely be careful about that. One of my friends, he was in Kiev and he matched with a girl on Tinder. They agreed to meet at a restaurant in the center, and she said suddenly, just when they're going to meet, 2 of my girlfriends are with me, is that okay? And he went along with it, he acquiesced, and he said, yeah, sure. And so that's 3 people on a date, which is just weird, let's be honest, about a why bring 2 girlfriends. So anyways, they had dinner, and he paid the bill because this is Ukraine, he has to pay the entire tab. That's just the way the culture works. Then they went to another place across the street, which is a very expensive and famous bar in Kiev, and he told me that when, maybe 10 minutes later, all this sushi just appeared on the table. And these girls had already eaten, remember? So they just ordered, and he didn't speak Russian, so he didn't realize that's what they're ordering. What do you think my friend did in this situation? Do you think he got angry? No, there's a better way. He just looked at his phone, picked up and said, girl, sorry, I have to take a business call. It's very noisy here. I'll just be back in a minute. I'm going to take it outside. He never came back. So be careful. So the next complaint is that Ukrainian girls completely overestimate their value. That's just something that has happened because a lot of them are so corrupted by the money that's thrown them by the foreigners who come to Ukraine. For example, lots of Turkish guys, Arabs, Israelis, even Americans come with all these marriage agencies, and they just throw money their way, and that kind of inflates their sense of self-worth. A lot of my British friends also complained about that they felt that the Ukrainian girls were not really that impressive other than their looks, and they were not offering anything kind of more for the long term, and that they didn't see them as maybe the big catch, but maybe that's just their egos. Let's see. So the next reason never to date a Ukrainian girl is the fact that they have awful behavior, inappropriate behavior on dates. And that's because they're normally completely engrossed in their iPhone. Probably 2 latest iPhones that were presumably bought for them by their sponsors. And it's quite often that you'll see girls with cracked screens. And that's because basically, for 2 reasons. One, they couldn't invest in a cover. And secondly, because they cannot afford to have the screen fixed. Something that I always noticed in Ukraine, a lot of broken screens on the iPhones. So that's it from me from this video. I've given you guys 5 reasons. Having talked to my friends who are foreigners from different countries like Italy, Turkey, US, Britain, about why you should never date a Ukrainian girl. It's not always like in my video from Odessa where I showed you, beautiful weather, a great city, super hot chicks, great vibe. Ukraine is also like this. Now we're in Kiev and it's cold. It's the winter time, and yeah, and people are all wrapped up. So definitely you should take my advice and stay way clear of those Ukrainian girls. They're only trouble. I'm telling you, they're only trouble.